All right, welcome into the next edition of the Vegas Squares podcast. Today we are...
Fuck.
Uh-oh.
Sorry.
Spike's dead already.
No, I just realized my hands smell like WD-40.
That's sexy.
Yeah, that's manly as shit right there.
You planning on abducting chicks later?
No,
between... Hey, does this napkin smell like chloroform to you?
Or the old Richard Pryor gag. I'm not addicted to cocaine, I just love the way it smells.
All right, well, quite the
intro.
introduction for the podcast here. So we're going to be talking about none of that.
Yeah, that's about as good as it's going to get today, too.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, speaking of Richard Pryor, we are one tokenless host away from a full staff. Is that racist?
Probably.
Okay, good. I'm going to leave that one in.
Oh, my God.
Well, we appreciate you tuning in.
See, this is why I use a pseudonym, so nobody at my actual job knows that I hang out with degenerates like you.
Exactly. Well, that's the thing. You're just a mystery, so we like to keep it that way sometimes. You're just in the World Wide Web of wonder.
Yes.
So, no token this episode. Spike and I press on. We are sitting here in studio. Not too much going on as far as the on-field craziness. Preseason debuts happened this week. Some good, some bad, some, maybe some overreaction or underreaction. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about a little bit more of the Urban Meyer saga that we talked about last podcast. And now there's a new coach that has now been put on administrative leave for some weird shit going on in his program as well, too. What do you want to start with?
Well, since I don't actually know anything about the Maryland situation...
That's what we should start with.
Yeah, I'll just let you take the reins while I kind of look it up here.
Yeah, we'll gloss over that. So, Maryland's coach, DJ Durkin's been placed on leave as they investigate the culture of the Maryland football program after the death of one of their players. I'm trying to find his first name now. The last name is McNair. I only remember that because of Steve. Yeah, dead McNairs. No? Too soon?
Oh, fucking hell, dude.
I'm on one today.
Yeah, you
Must
are.
be this G2 Gatorade.
Yeah, you're in a mood.
Low on calories, because this one's low calorie. Anyways, so they put Durkin on leave, and while that's happening, they'll be basically running with their assistant. It's really not a lot to say right now, because not a lot of the information is out, but... this is another case of, I don't want to say negligence, but it almost seems like that might be the right word in programs. It almost seems like, when we talked about with Urban Meyer, winning at all costs sometimes leads to some oversight of some pretty serious situations, a la, someone dying of heat exhaustion on your field. Well, after practice, but bless you.
I mean, that's kind of always been the case, though, because in college football... the people that are head coaches in college football are such type A alpha personalities that they want to run the program that they want, the way they want to run it. They don't want interference from administration,
right?
Because they want to get away with shit like, borderline hazing or even outright hazing, overworking or overusing some of their players. Like, this isn't new. It's just when it results in a player's premature death, that's when... obviously the flags go up, but they should have gone up in this program and in other programs much, much sooner, because we've heard about crazy situations like this all the time, where it's like freshmen or first year students as a bonding exercise are either like forced to wear dresses and have their asses paddled as they walk down a lane.
But that seems more like team hazing versus the staff.
But I mean,
they're allowing it. I assume
they're allowing it, and in some cases encouraging it, saying like you have to do this in order to be part of the team.
Right. When I played sports, that's what we did to the freshmen, and that's what happened when I was a freshman as well too. And the coaches were a part of it. In my experience, it never got too far to where anything was life threatening or dangerous. But
right, and for the most part, it doesn't. But there's always going to be that kind of...
somebody takes it too far.
Yeah, somebody's going to take it too far. Or in this situation, if a player complains, the coach doesn't necessarily need to or want to take that complaint seriously. Like if the player was saying, I'm dehydrated, I need to take a break, I need to take a rest, that's not going to be met with, okay, your health is important. It's going to be met with, fuck you, be a man, get on the field.
Now, see, I thought at some point, because, I mean, being familiar with UCF, a player died on a football field there. And O'Leary had to face a lot of questions, a lot of criticism. He had to face calls for his job, and the school had to settle a lawsuit with that. And I thought, in that time, that was 2009, I think. I thought that there were rules put into place where there were sanctioned practices, sanctioned water breaks. I could be wrong, but I thought that was with that specific death of Plancher, Eric Plancher, who was a UCF football player. That brought national sanctions and rules and regulations to these practices.
Yeah, I mean the rules exist. Does that mean that they're always followed?
No, I understand that. It just seems like I thought that, because I know that when I was involved with the football program, there was a dedicated person from the NCAA who worked for UCF, but it was kind of like that Title IX guy you're talking about.
Yeah,
he has ties to both the school and the academic association, where his number one job is to primarily focus on the NCAA rules and compliance. It's a compliance officer.
Yeah, the compliance officer exists. Actually, I think UNLV was just hiring for one. I saw that job posting a couple of months ago.
You make a good one.
Part of the problem for these kinds of jobs is that they want people that have experience in NCAA sports.
Right.
And I don't, because the school I went to was Division III.
And you don't even watch NCAA sports.
Yeah, and even as a Division III school, I didn't participate in any of that. But
fair enough.
Part of the problem with having a compliance officer, a single compliance officer, is that we're talking about schools that have 20 sports for men and 21 for women, or vice versa. So, they can't always focus on, like, if football's going on, if football practice is happening, they can't be there every day to say, all right, they've been on the field for 4 hours and 52 minutes, and 8 minutes they need to take a break.
So do you think that we need to re-examine the compliance team and make it more of a team than just a position?
Right, and
because like you said, there's 20 sports. If I'm watching, say you and I are compliance officers, if we're watching football, well, who's watching softball? Who's watching rowing? Who's watching baseball?
And this is the kind of thing where it's a really easy fix where they don't have to hire a full-time... I mean, they can have the full-time compliance officer. Like, that makes sense, and that's the person that goes from the school to the NCAA directly. But there is an opportunity to have, just find, an assistant director of admissions and say, okay, if you want to make an extra $10,000 a year, at night you're going to watch football practice and you're going to time when the water breaks happen and everything else.
I said you could even sports management. You can use this. A lot of places, a lot of schools have a sports management. Study, a field study.
Even undergrad,
you could use undergrads or grads as even interns.
Yeah, grads as TAs would be perfect.
Yeah.
So,
one thing I think of, and obviously the media, the press, social media is so much more today than it was. Well, 30 years ago it didn't exist. The media existed, but social media did not.
Right.
The internet was not what we have now.
Well, and remember too that the 24-hour news cycle didn't exist 30 years ago, and it exists now, and it applies to sports. Like, not a lot of people remember that when shit happens in the world of sports where somebody dies or crazy things happen.
Even then, back then, they had beat reporters, but not like they have now.
Oh, no.
But what I was going with that is, do you feel that we, in this situation, we hear about it more because of the accessibility? Because I have a hard time, really. I was looking at, some research. I have a hard time seeing when kids died back in the day. And we had less access to technology. We had less access to, health and fitness programs that could keep these kids, involved. But it seems more and more now the kids are either undernourished, passing away. It's just not something I've read about, at least from the studies I've looked at. You don't read about that stuff 30, 40 years ago, like you do today.
Right, and I think that has to go into the hyper-competitiveness of today's NCAA.
Okay.
And that is, again, that goes back to the coaches of that.
Win at all costs or lose your job.
Win at all costs, yeah.
And then if you do win, then all of a sudden, then they start kind of looking into your program. I mean, Art Briles essentially let a sex ring go when his team was on top of the world at Baylor. I mean, that guy's not getting a job anytime soon.
No, that's not the kind of, especially because Baylor's, I think, like religiously affiliated, isn't it?
The town of Waco is very religious. I
know that.
I don't know for a fact. I'm not saying you're wrong. I just don't know for a fact.
No, I'm going to look it up because I kind of have.
It's a private school, if I'm not mistaken. So
so it very well could be. And the only reason I know that is because my wife and I are obsessed with
the Joanna.
Yeah, Chip and Joanna Gaines.
Desiree likes that show. What's it called?
Oh my God, what the hell is it called?
I just know her name's Joanna and Chip.
Yeah.
Well, the guy's name is Chip. But
Magnolia Farms. What the Fixer Upper? That's it.
All right, Fixer Upper.
Yeah.
All right.
God. This is why I'm never going to get a commercial.
But I mean, you look at when things are riding high, like Urban Meyer. You have Art Briles. You have Bobby Petrino's another one. Jim Tressel. The teams are riding high, and there's nothing really nothing really on the field to nitpick. That's when you start having these media guys dive. I mean, the deaths on the field are easy targets. But I mean, look at Tressel with the tattoos and the jersey swap, the memorabilia swapping.
Oh, right.
He wouldn't have gone down for that if he just would have told the NCAA the truth. But he lied to the NCAA, and he's not the coach at Ohio State anymore, which he still would be more than likely. Bobby Petrino had a relationship inappropriately with a university employee that never would have probably come to light until they crashed a motorcycle. I mean, so it's like, it's these guys who try to maintain this squeaky clean image up top. Now, DJ Durkin hasn't been in Maryland very long, and the program hasn't really been very good since coming over to the Big Ten. But, like I said, for DJ, a death on the field is the easiest target to come on and start looking at what was the actual reason he was suspended. I'll give you it. It's contributing to the toxic culture of the program.
Right.
So I'm curious to see what other unacceptable behaviors, as they've called it, are going to be unearthed. Because if it's just a death on the thing, which we don't know, I don't have a lot of information on the kid, Jordan McNair, but like I know Plancher at UCF had a heart problem, so that contributed obviously to it was a factor of his death. But if Jordan McNair was a healthy offensive lineman, I mean, there could be more to this.
Oh, there could be, and it kind of sounds like, because you don't call it a toxic culture if it's a one-off incident.
Right, that's what I'm saying. That we're waiting for more feedback from this.
Yeah, so we need to know exactly what's going on. But I know the university president released a statement, and said all the right things, shocked and horrified, and et cetera, and so on. So, I definitely think that we need to discover everything that's going on, find out what actually was going on with this kid, if he did have any medical conditions that contributed to this. But, if they're talking about a toxic culture, then I am skeptical, and I'm worried that this is going to reflect poorly on the Terps organization.
Well, according to the Washington Post, an unnamed player who played for Maryland during Durkin's first season at Maryland said that there was a constant degrading of players, and that seemed to be the culture brought to the program, and they thought that would toughen us up. So,
yeah,
does that sound more? Again, we don't know exactly what's said, because there's ways to show tough love, and there's ways to just be a cruel and demanding dick.
Yep.
I mean, what's that going to be? Your word versus his kind of thing? I mean, how do you prove, like, if I'm DJ Durkin and you're this player, and I'm, hey, move your ass, slowpoke. I mean,
right.
You may be, a little butthurt by it, but is that necessarily creating a toxic environment?
No, but I mean, this is also going to be, if he comes out and says, "Oh no, I was nothing but nice to these kids." Remember, college football teams have 105 players or
roughly,
something ridiculous. So it's not going to take too many of these players that got rubbed the wrong way to come out and say, "No, DJ Durkin's a dick." And the more that happens, the worse it's going to look for DJ Durkin. Even if it is, he was just saying, "Suck it up, Buttercup." Mm-hmm. And people thought that was degrading. The more the people that pile on to DJ Durkin, the actual context isn't going to matter. It's just going to be numbers on numbers on numbers. Now,
I mean, I hate to say this as a haves and have-nots kind of thing, but It's an unnamed player, but I would be more apt to say that this unnamed player probably didn't see the field too much.
Probably not.
So do you think
probably right? Yeah.
Do you think if, like you said, more and more players come out, if it seems to be that all of the second, third, and freshmen, or excuse me, red shirts are all the ones who are saying, he's he's kind of a dick to us, and all the starters are saying, I never experienced that.
No, but the flip side is if a starter comes out and says, no, this guy was an absolute dick, then that's going to look even worse for him.
Oh, yeah, if a starter comes out, or if a few starters come out and say that. But it just seems like, I know a lot of times when you're that age, 18, 19, 20 years old, and someone says something mean to you, or something doesn't go your way, or you didn't get the starting time you thought you deserved, you maybe have a jaded opinion of somebody based on, a selfish notion.
Yes and no.
I'm not defending DJ Durkin anyway.
No,
I'm just trying to see this from a different side.
I fully understand that, but if you look at it from the player side, remember too that before the NFL draft, coaches and general managers will call college head coaches and say, what was this guy like?
Right.
And, it's not just starters that get drafted in the NFL. I mean, we're talking, look at fucking Matt Castle. Never started a game for USC and got drafted.
Right.
So, we're talking, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're starting. The problem is that players know that if they shit talk a coach, that coach holds their future in their hands, essentially. So the coach can control whether or not this person makes it to the pros. Look at, I don't want to say that they're on equal plane, but, Terry Crews was just in front of Congress, what was that, last week, 2 weeks ago, talking about the constant...
The actor?
Yeah.
Oh.
Because he has been basically the only male in Hollywood that's come out and said, yeah, I was sexually abused, or, essentially forced into uncomfortable situations by producers, by agents.
I wanted
because
the
of this.
role.
And one of the congressmen, I think it might have been Barbara Boxer, asked him, you're a big dude. Why didn't you just fight him off? And Terry Crews is like, look, I am a black man in America. I don't have many opportunities. If I piss off the wrong person, I'm never getting hired again. It's the same situation here. If these players piss off the coach, they may never get a chance to play in the NFL, and that is, for a lot of these guys, the only thing they have known, the only goal that they have had for their entire lives.
Fair enough. It's a good way to put it. And eventually, when you realize that dream's not going to be recognized, it's time to unearth what you know.
Right.
Fair enough. So let's dip back into Urban. We had a pretty good discussion on Urban Meyer last week when Token and Tony Johnson were here. And we're in week 2 of this 2-week investigation. And, I've been listening as much as I could to, anything that's come out. And all I've really heard is that, what we talked about in week 1, and Zach Smith basically getting on an interview and asking for his job back. Not directly, but basically saying that until I'm convicted, I should be able to continue working, essentially.
Yeah, that's, the court of public opinion and actual courts use very different standards, because you're not going to be found innocent until proven guilty in the court of public opinion.
Right, and we're talking about a wide receivers coach who's a pretty good recruiter, and the fact of the matter is when you have Urban Meyer and the name Ohio State, you could almost walk into any room and compete and not have to compete with anybody but maybe 5 or 6 schools.
Right.
At that point. So does Zach Smith make that much of a difference? Maybe, maybe not. But at the same time, you're right. In the sense of Ohio State, firing Zach Smith because of his level of prominence in the school, I understand. Firing Urban Meyer is a different situation right now because he basically has not been found of any wrongdoing at this point, just accused.
Right, at this point. And that's kind of the problem, is that it's, one guy's accused of beating his wife, one guy is accused of not reporting the first guy beating his wife. So it's not just that they both haven't been found of actually doing anything wrong. I think it's the severity of the crime of which they are being accused is having a big effect on this.
So what do you make of Courtney Smith's mother coming out and saying Zach is not guilty of domestic violence against the ex-wife?
I actually hadn't heard that. That's
4 days ago.
Okay.
The mother of Courtney Smith and daughter of late Earl Bruce, who is Meyer's mentor, has come out and said that she never witnessed it, and that she believes her her daughter is out to take down the Ohio State program.
Holy shit. I mean, that's certainly a problem for the wife's case, because this is...
Well, that's her mother.
Yeah, and that's the problem, because it lends to her credibility. And if the mother is saying, no, her opinion, her statements have been tainted, that's one thing. The flip side of that is, just because she didn't see it doesn't mean it didn't happen.
No, I understand
the mother's not going to be there in the house to witness all of these things. And then, there were previous police reports and everything else that are going to weigh more heavily than just what the mother is saying.
Right. I mean, the thing is that story, or that at least, tale, that side of the story, leans towards Zach Smith's credibility. The thing is Zach's not getting hired back at Ohio State.
Oh, no.
No matter what, even if he's found not guilty. And if he is not guilty of this and she's fabricating a wild, tale, I'm sorry, you were caught in the crosshairs and you're going to be, casualty of war at that point.
Right.
Could he land somewhere else? Probably. But at this point in time, he's not going back to Ohio State as long as Urban Meyer's there. But it seems to me, I don't understand why there would be a reasoning for the mother to go against her daughter, because I understand that her dad is Urban Meyer's mentor, but I feel like, in my opinion, in my life, blood runs thicker than water at this point. So it either to me screams problems for Courtney Smith's side or a pretty big payoff. But the latter seems a little more far-fetched to me.
Yeah, that's like,
but what I'm saying is,
movie of the week territory right there.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Of all the people who want to side with Courtney Smith, again, I'm sitting right in the middle in this. I don't care. But it does seem very strange to me. And maybe, in 2009 when Urban Meyer and his wife Shelley sat down with Zach and Courtney after the issues at Florida, instead of firing him then, maybe Courtney took offense that all they did was just go to counseling at that point. And that was suggested by Urban Meyer. So maybe there's a grudge to be held at that point. And 6 years later, when the cops were called again, and I'm not doubting that the cops were called for probably an escalated argument, but, 9 times being called to the house and not once leaving with an arrest, and now you have the mother basically stating, this didn't happen. Again, like you said, just because she wasn't there doesn't mean she knows what happened and what didn't happen.
Right.
It's just, it seems like, I hate to use another tale, but it seems like it's like the Duke lacrosse. The story, as it got deeper, seemed to fall apart.
Yeah. Duke lacrosse, I don't know if you ever saw, this is a very weird tangent. I don't know if you ever saw the 30 for 30 on that on ESPN, but that was such a fucked up tale with the district attorney, Mike Nifong. Like, nothing he did was legal or good or right in the whole thing. The detectives were so fucked up, one of them killed themselves after the case
even
was
still,
over.
I think Nifong said he was like, I still stand by what I did or whatever. That's like, okay, buddy.
The entire thing is just so crazy. But yeah, you're right. This could delve into that kind of just everybody has an angle, everybody has a motive, and this story could end up being that kind of 30 for 30 fuck up.
Now, say Courtney Smith gets her way, or I don't want to use that because that's not the right speech to say. Say Courtney Smith is vindicated. This comes out to be true. Urban, Zach are fired. Her endgame lawsuit at that point to the college.
Oh, yeah.
Or is she really realistically just looking for justice? Because I have a hard time believing that's the sole end game for her.
No, well, and part of the problem is that, we live in a country where nobody just wants justice.
Sure, fair enough.
And that's a sad state of affairs. But, the reality is there is going to be a lawsuit coming out of this.
Yeah, and like you said, the question now is, there's two questions. Is what did Meyer know or not know, and what did he do or not do about it? Mm-hmm. Now, I think the first one, regardless of what the answer is, isn't a fireable offense. the second one, I think you and we talked about last week. I don't think the second one's completely a fireable offense, but you do.
Yeah, and that's only because
today's culture.
No, well, yeah, I mean that is definitely going to play a big role in it. The problem is, and I'll again use another comparison. It's like casinos and marijuana. Like, marijuana is legal in the state. Casinos are being told, do not touch this stuff because it's still illegal federally, and it could theoretically fuck up your gaming licenses. Because if you do one thing wrong, or a small thing wrong, you're going to have very, very big problems down the road. Mm-hmm. Or theoretically you could. It's the same thing with these universities. Sports at universities are gigantic money makers. If you start fucking around and putting that money-making endeavor in jeopardy, you are going to face consequences for that.
It's fair enough. Yes, from being close to the casino industry, yeah, they tell us to still crack down on the marijuana. People smoking on the outside, on the streets, and everything.
Even on the streets,
if it's on the sidewalk is still technically that resort's property to a certain extent.
Okay.
In some cases. Yeah. So I know security teams are still, pretty up in arms about it. And then, of course, somebody who's like, oh, it's legal, man, whatever. There's still jurisdictions. I mean, as far as I know the rule, public, being public in wherever in Las Vegas with marijuana is still not quite that legal, correct?
No, it's not. And that was... and we can kind of go down this road.
I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole.
But that was one of the problems. Tick Seegerblum, who's a state senator now running for county commissioner, he has been a big proponent of marijuana, and he, obviously voted in favor of it, but he was kind of against the law just because it basically said you can only smoke at home. Mm-hmm. And he wanted other places, like even marijuana lounges, to treat like bars where you could go and smoke and do this and like he wanted places in public where you could smoke, and that kind of thing is, I think, slowly kind of coming around.
And I don't have a problem with public, designated areas, but the problem I don't have with that, and even out on the street walking, firing up a joint or whatever, it's. And again, you can, your counter argument could be alcohol at this point, but just as with alcohol. Doing recreational drugs affects your motor skills and ability to think clearly.
Sure.
So I have a problem with that if they make it legal, that people are going to more often, not that they don't do it now, but more often smoke and drive.
Yeah, well, theoretically, yes. The problem is that in every state that has legalized marijuana, accidents where the driver is intoxicated either by alcohol or by weed are actually dropping by anywhere from 1.5% to about 4%.
Well, because like you said, don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole. When I dabbled in it more frequently in my youth, I didn't go anywhere. I just fucking sat there and ordered delivery.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons that the casinos aren't too keen in trying to fight to make this stuff legal is because when people get drunk, they're going to make big
order
bets.
Room service.
Yeah, when people get high, they're going to order room service and kind of chill out and just kind of
$21 mozzarella sticks.
Yeah, exactly. You're not going to make the same kind of money off these people.
So, anyways, back to Urban, and none of that had to do with marijuana, but it was a good off topic. Yeah. I feel like the truth might be the last thing we get out of this investigation.
Oh, we're never going to get the truth out of the investigation, which is one of the problems that I have with these investigations, is that it's always, maybe 80% of the truth, and then the rest you kind of have to fill in the blanks.
Well, right, but at some point in time, in any case, you have to take everything that's presented to you and make a decision. That may not be right.
Right.
It may be that 90% of the evidence, that reminds me of that To Make a Murder. Do you ever see that on Netflix?
Yes.
I watched that, and throughout different parts of the season, I'm like, guilty. Oh, and I'm not guilty. I was like, I don't know. I don't know. I left that season or that show not knowing if the guy's innocent or guilty.
Yeah, and we can talk about this for fucking days, where it's just, somebody either with incomplete evidence or, either a crazy cop or district attorney, or
the truth comes out on Meyer's deathbed or something.
Oprah's Book of the Month at the beginning of the summer. I forget the name of the book, but the guy's name was Anthony Ray Hinton. 30 years on death row, and the entire time he's like, I didn't do this. I didn't do this at all. I didn't do this. And then finally it comes out that he didn't do it, and he was let go. The problem was for him is that he can't sue the state because the way Alabama is set up, this is the most fucked up thing. He gets out of prison, or the Supreme Court says the first trial is null and void. Mm-hmm. So you have to have a second trial if you want to keep this guy in jail. And then the district attorney for Alabama says, no, we don't want to prosecute. So because he was never actually found innocent, it was just the first trial was now null and void, he can't sue the state for malicious prosecution and keeping him locked up for 30 years.
Because the first trial didn't ever happen?
Right, because it's like the first trial never happened.
Sneaky. Yeah,
really, really bad. But anyway, he wrote a book. He's going to be a millionaire off that anyway, so he's got nothing to worry about.
So, to wrap up Urban, I know we talked about this before. No matter what the decision comes down, a contingency of people is going to be mad. I want your personal thought is what, if it comes out that he knew about it and his reporting was lax to whoever the proper, like last week we talked about, I said, hey, Gene Smith, Zach's acting up again, blah, 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 whatever the words were. And Gene didn't go for it, Is this a situation where Urban and Gene go? In your opinion, I mean, if the reporting was lax to whoever needed to be, what's your level of comfort of punishment?
I think Urban Meyer gets 3 games max, probably 2. And I think the athletic director, if they knew about it to the point where they did nothing, that's probably a fireable offense. But if it was a lack of communication between the Title IX coordinator and the athletic director, then I think the Title IX coordinator goes.
Yeah, and I think that if Gene Smith, if the Title IX coordinator goes, he'll be fired. We will hear about it, but it won't be a blip on the radar.
It'll be a page 8 kind of thing.
Yeah, if Gene Smith goes, I think Ohio State's okay because a lot of times when you bring in a new athletic director, they want their own guy. But you bring in whoever, you bring in Spike McAwesome to be the athletic director. What idiot athletic director is going to come into a situation and say, I don't want Urban Meyer?
Right.
So, yeah. Actually, you nailed it right on the head. That's my thought is I think they'll actually be proactive and suspend him 2 games because Game 3 is at TCU in Fort Worth. I think they'll just be proactive, spend him 2 games, hoping that punishment will kind of let this all just kind of go away.
Yeah, and I think that'll be enough to quell enough of the masses that it won't be the headache that Ohio State thinks it's going to be.
Right.
Because in the end, what this comes down to is the football program making money and the alumni donating.
Sure. And the people who don't want him to be suspended will have their ground to say, look, you got your suspension, he did his time, that was the punishment, shut the hell up and go away. Right. And then you have the people on the other side who thought he should have been fired. They're gonna continue to be upset, but they at least got a little bit of semblance in this at that point. So,
and it could come down to just whoever is the bigger donor gets to say what they want, and it's sad to say, but I
that's what happened in Texas. That's how Charlie got fired. He was actually on the cusp of Charlie Strong on the cusp of turning a program around, and one of the biggest donors said, "Let's go get this Herman guy from Houston," and gone.
And I worked at a university back in the day. I worked at my alma mater in the admissions office, and I heard a story about a donor that had his name on 5 buildings. That's how much money this guy gave.
Wow.
He was taking a campus tour with the president, director of housing, this, that, and the other thing. And somebody, I think a female senior VP, spoke up and just kind of gave her opinion about something. And the donor looked at her and then looked at the president and says, that woman needs to know her place. Mm. And nobody said anything because they didn't want to piss off the money.
All right.
And this is the same kind of thing where you don't want to piss off the money.
I mean, being around the casino industry, I know it translates right to there too.
I can imagine.
I know that there's a tier of customer in our industry that actually, I learned this in one of our, it was like a rah-rah meeting thing. Mm. There's a tier in our industry of our company specifically that is actually responsible for 84% of our revenue.
Fucking hell.
84%. Yeah, I couldn't believe it because, you think about how many people go through a casino every day and spend XYZ dollars, but, when you think about the number and you take 84%, you're just like, jaw drop. So, Anyways, yeah, like I said, yeah, I agree with you. I think 2 games will be hopefully where they can put this to bed and move forward because, like Tony Johnson said, season starts soon. And if Urban sits out the first 2 games, I think it's like Rutgers and nobody else, some other schmuck. So I think they'll be okay.
Yeah, and you get the 1 in 100 chance that you're going to have something like an Appalachian State at Michigan pulling off the upset.
Yeah, and that was Michigan during not a down year, but not a great year.
Right.
And we're talking about Ohio State team that I believe is number 4 in the nation right now, and won't have a problem with those teams. I'm trying to find out who they play. I know they play TCU week 3.
Okay.
So Ohio State goes.
So yeah, then it makes the most sense to do
Oregon State and Rutgers. I mean, come on.
Oregon State, yeah.
2 home games, they'll be fine. And Rutgers has been a doormat ever since they came over to the Big Ten, so they'll be okay. So let's close the book on that. Let's talk about a little NFL, which I know you follow a lot more than college.
Yes,
considering you follow 0 in college, almost.
Pretty much.
But these guys came from college, so now you're ready to watch them, right?
Yes. Now that they have ditched that garbage.
Amateur status.
Yeah, now they can play. Actually, that's one thing that I've never understood is how does the NHL get the draft right and every other sport fuck it up, where getting drafted doesn't ruin your amateur status?
Yeah, I don't know.
Every other league gets it wrong. The hockey's the only one that gets it right.
Well, they're not paying them, correct, until they sign a contract.
Right. Well, no, but they can be the property of, so they can sign a contract that says this team has the rights to this player once they're done with their junior status or whatever else. Because if they go to the CHL,
baseball does that for 2 years. You can go to college for 2 years and then you got to decide.
Is it 2? Did they?
It's either 1 or 2 years.
Okay,
but I think because the NHL's, well, that might not be right. I was going to say I think because the NHL's lower leagues are independently funded leagues, but that might not be right with the salary cap. That's a good question. I don't know.
Anyway,
I think the rights have to do with, because the thing is in the NFL when you go to the draft, I mean, there's no minor leagues.
Right. No, I understand that, but if a player comes out as a junior and says I'm declaring for the draft, and then they don't get drafted and they don't get signed as a free agent, they're fucked. As soon as they sign with an agent, they can't go back to college. Essentially,
I know they're adjusting that in basketball. That could come soon in football too. But the thing is I mean, no disrespect to anybody. And I know your thought process, but if you're declaring for the draft in your junior year and you're not drafted, somebody fucking gave you some bad information.
Right.
Somebody fucked you over. So, that being said, if you're dumb enough to do that, I mean, if you're a second string quarterback and you're a junior and you've got 1 year, half a year of tape and you're like, yeah, I'm going to go be a 6th round pick. Okay, good luck to you. So, anyways, a lot of the focus was on quarterbacks this preseason, and obviously in the draft. You got Baker, you got Josh Allen, you got Lamar Jackson, Mason Rudolph. Who else? They have Sam Darnold. Everybody kind of Josh. Did I say Josh Rosen? If
no,
I didn't,
you said Allen. I was waiting for you to say Rosen.
So let's kind of review a little bit of the first few picks. The first few picks there, and we'll start with the number 1 guy, and that's Baker Mayfield. Your initial thoughts on his debut?
Well, I may fall into the same trap that a lot of other people do when they see a rookie quarterback in a preseason game and they look even halfway decent, and people start saying, "Oh, he's the future of the team. Mm-hmm. He's the leader of the team," and everything else. It's like, I saw the report that said the Browns still plan on starting Tyrod Taylor over Baker Mayfield.
That's a smarter move.
It's the right move, and I don't know that it's going to make everybody happy, nor should it, but it's going to be the right move for the Browns in the long run, because you can't just throw Baker Mayfield out there and hope for the best.
Well, 2 things I noticed is, obviously the number 1 thing was he played the second half. It's the second and third team guys.
Exactly.
The thing I took away from that is he was only 50% from the field in that spot. 55%. He was 11 of 20. So while he had some good throws,
right? I think it's the 2 touchdowns that have people more excited.
Right.
Than the 55%.
Watching his performance, the misses he had were misses, capital M. So I'm not ready to crown Baker like everybody else seems to be. Although that's a good start. Does it earn him more reps in preseason game number 2? or does that earn him at this point? Because I don't think the starters really get ramped up until the third week. So Tyrod will come out for a quarter. Baker may come out and play the other 3 at that point. I don't know what else they have on the docket, but
who cares?
Yeah, exactly. We're getting way more Browns talk than anyone else should. So, I would my grade for him was probably a B- at that point.
That sounds right.
I don't want to get too high on him, not just because of Baker Mayfield, but the fact that we're talking about Browns quarterbacks. You never really want to get too high on one of those.
Right,
guys.
and that's part of the problem is that if they have an offense around them, maybe they can do something. But it's still the Browns. It's still a tough division because Baltimore's defense is no slouch. Pittsburgh's defense is still pretty good. I don't know what the fuck to make of Cincinnati anymore. I've just given up on trying to handicap them at any point.
They're a tough one. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just the Browns. No matter how much the Browns improve, they're still the basement of that division.
Right, as it stands currently, until they prove something to me. Yes.
Yes.
We can talk about all the ads they had this year and the offseason they had, but until you provide me on-field results, I'm still not sold on them. However, I think they will be improved this year. And looking at their schedule, again, this is a hot take. I'm probably going to be way off on it. But there's a chance, looking at their schedule, because I've been diving into a lot of these schedules. A couple days from now, I'll have division prop bet previews on all 8 divisions. So I've been diving into some schedules, some off-season. So, guys, if you're on the website, vegassquares.com, look for that. There's a chance they could be like 4-2 in the early part of the season.
Really?
Yeah. So again, I'm not going to
with Tyrod Taylor.
Even with Tyrod Taylor, if the weapons they acquired perform like they're supposed to, there's a chance. Again, the back half of their schedule is incredibly difficult, and I don't expect them to be any better than 6-10.
Okay.
So that being said, I expect a 4-2. I don't expect. I can see a situation where they're 4-2 to open up the season. Anyways, again, let's not get too ahead of Browns quarterbacks.
Yes.
Saquon Barkley had one 39-yard run and 3 runs for 4 yards at that point. Everybody's ready to make him Rookie of the Year. Everybody's comparing him to Ezekiel Elliott, comparing him to a lot of other quality running backs who have been in the league currently or not, not still in the league. But at this point, I'm not ready to do anything. Not really ready to do anything with any of these guys. But I thought not ready to crown him. But I thought Saquon showed a situation where he's going to be definitely a career extender for Eli Manning at this point.
Yeah, and I think that was the goal, is to get another couple of good years out of Eli. Because he's just... I don't know. Is Eli a Hall of Famer at this point?
Well, as the fact that we're sitting here as 2 Patriots fans, we would say no.
Right, and that's part of the problem.
But anybody who's not a Patriots fan would say only because of those 2 Super Bowls, he is a Hall of Famer.
Right, but that's the problem. His only 2 playoff appearances
are Super Bowl.
Oh,
I understand that. He's a mediocre quarterback at best.
Yeah.
When you talk about quality. I think he's a poor man's Brett Favre. He can get
Interesting.
He can get you wins. He can lead a team, but he's way too inaccurate and throws way too many picks and takes way too many chances and is immobile.
Yeah. All right.
So I know that sounds crazy. You're thinking of Eli Manning as a poor man's Brett Favre. But
I know, but and that's kind of. And I didn't mean to dodge the question about Saquon Barkley.
No, that's okay. We can come back to it.
No, people are going to look at that one highlight reel run and say he's the real deal.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, not to bring every conversation always back to the Golden Knights, but this is the William Karlsson 40-some-odd goal season this year. Everybody's like, oh, he's going to do that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's calm down. Let's see more tape. Let's see more seasons of this. For Karlsson, let's see more games, more runs, more sustained running games out of Saquon Barkley.
You still have our over-under bet on Karlsson?
I don't
26.5 goals?
Yeah, I think you said 26.5,
okay.
Yeah.
So you still have the over on that?
Oh, of course.
Okay. But, yeah, I mean, a lot of things Barkley did at college didn't translate to the NFL. Like, his agility, like, Reggie Bush had the agility coming out like that Saquon Barkley did. It didn't quite transfer to the NFL past, like, season 2.
Yeah.
You get some tape, the NFL catches up to you. Let's look at Josh Allen, who may not have had the flashiest performance, but he definitely had the unflashiest play. I don't know if you saw the 4th down and 2 where he dropped back, tried to maneuver around 4 or 5 defenders, falling on his butt, lofts one up in the air. It was awful. If you ever get a chance to look at it.
Now I got to look
at it. It was
up.
a complete It was a Browns move. But
So I am going to
showed off his arm strength, though.
Before we get too deep into this, I gotta say I am completely biased against Josh Allen, not just because he plays for Buffalo, but because the Bills traded up to get a quarterback who lost to UNLV in his college career. Like, to me, that is inexcusable, and everybody in the Bills front office should have been fired immediately. Before the second round even started, the entire front office staff should have been fired.
Well, let's look at it this way. I think the Bills have a quality enough roster that if A.J. McCarron plays B football, that team can actually challenge New England for the division title.
I mean, there's nobody else in the division that's close, so yeah.
Well, but even with Buffalo making a playoff spot, they didn't challenge New England last year.
Oh, that's fair, yeah.
So what I'm saying is I think that they've slid up just a half step, just enough to catch the Patriots. I think this year sliding down a half step, but they're still not equal, but closer.
Yeah.
They're the first team since 2011, I think, is legitimately has a 25% chance or more to win the division.
Okay. I think that's reasonable. I think it's going to depend on, not to sound cliche, but it's going to depend on the quarterback play.
Right. So that being said, what I'm saying
McCarron and
Peterman's not playing, but if McCarron's going to win the job, which gives gives the coaching staff the ability to mold this guy.
Yeah.
So he's got the arm strength, he's got the accuracy pretty well. He's got the ability to see the field. Take the 3 intangibles that made him a first-round pick, develop on it. They've got the time to do it. I think them and Arizona are probably in the best spots to develop their quarterbacks.
Yeah.
New head coaches or head coaches with a little bit of wiggle room that have quarterbacks that, again, I don't want to dive into this, and I don't want it to be a hot take, but if Sam Bradford's healthy, Arizona's better than a lot of people are giving him credit for.
Yeah. Well, but it's still a super tough division.
Sure.
But, I mean, you're right. You're absolutely
they're still
right.
probably 4-4 in that division, but they're more competitive than they are if Nick, what's his name? Nick Glennon? No. Mike Glennon.
Yeah.
If Mike Glennon's having to put his hand under a center's butt on the field. Where was I? But yeah, okay, so the Bills have the ability to... The thing is, they worked him out enough to see what they liked. And I understand what you're saying. Yeah, Josh Allen looks pretty up and down. I didn't know he lost to UNLV, but yeah, you're right. If you lost to UNLV in your career, you probably should hang it up.
Yeah.
But, that being said, I think that they have a time frame of a year, possibly 2, because McCarron's not coming in there with his mindset of saying, oh, I only want to be here for a couple years. He's coming in here saying, I'm 6 or 7 years old, I'm ready to take the reins for 4 or 5 years. And then let Buffalo have to make a decision on McCarron or Allen at that point. So I think you have a guy who, whereas Tyrod Taylor probably realizes more that he's probably a 2-year fix at most in Cleveland. So he's auditioning for, maybe
for
Cleveland,
other teams.
Yeah. I don't think McCarron is going in with that mindset. So I think that while I agree with you, Allen's probably the most raw of the 5 guys, maybe other than Lamar Jackson. He probably has the biggest advantage that he can sit back and watch, and God forbid if Buffalo's ever blowing out, he can get some game experience where it doesn't quite matter at that point. So you're right. He's not ready to start an NFL game right now. Nor are probably any of these, except for the next guy I'm talking about is Darnold. He looked good.
That was the one I didn't see, so I'm going to have to rely on your opinion.
13 of 18 for close to 100 yards, threw a touchdown, threw a perfect pass for a touchdown as the receiver toe dragged in the front corner of the end zone.
Damn.
Very good pass. Again, against the seconds and thirds, and I'm not trying to hype anything up, but he looked like... See, whereas Baker, with his 11 of 20, with his 292... He looked like he had the ability. He almost looked like Johnny Manziel, a better version.
Oh.
He had the ability to scramble, find a guy, and he had a few. Like I said, a few tosses were bad, but that one he threw to Njoku in the back of the end zone, that's a split second. I mean, his accuracy was on that specific throw. Can he do that 90% of the time? The book's out on that.
Right.
Sam Darnold's second half, he had 7 drives. He was able to move the team for first downs in 6 of them. So that just shows me his ability to, they were winning, eat off clock. He had the ability to navigate a football game. That's what showed me more.
That's a game manager, not necessarily a good quarterback, though.
Well,
I mean, this is Joe Flacco early in his career type game manager.
But the best game manager in the NFL right now is Alex Smith, and I'd take him on my team.
That's okay. That's reasonable.
So all I'm saying is, if you have a guy like Darnold, who on your rookie contract you can build around him, which the Jets need a lot. Let's not sugarcoat that. But I mean, look at where Seattle was when Russell Wilson came in. Look at where Dak was when look at where Dallas was when Dak was.
Yeah.
You have that window of 4 years. Maybe now they start spending their money. Teddy Bridgewater is a 1-year deal. McCown will be gone if this guy's ready to start season 2. Mm-hmm. They can get a running back. They can get some weapons around him at wide receiver. Their offensive line's one of the best. Their defensive line's one of the best. Their secondary is last year I believe they were like 5th or 6th in the league. Their linebackers are terrible, and their skill positions are terrible.
Right.
So they're not terribly far away. And if they can do that in 1 or 2 years, as Sam Darnold, progresses, and Brady may or may not be in the league anymore, after 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, we've been saying that for 10 years.
Again, I said may or may not be. But I'm saying, at this point in time, I think the AFC East teams, because, again, I think Tannehill, this will be his last year. They'll be looking to, figure something out here in a second. Or, in the next year or two.
Yeah.
These teams know the time is now to start drafting the guys that'll be ready 2 or 3 years from now when Brady inevitably declines. Again, maybe. But when that inevitable decline happens, one of these teams is like, we're going to be ready.
Right.
So, and like I said, Buffalo is the closest spot right now, depending on how, like you said, A.J. McCarron performs.
Yep.
So,
now Buffalo's going to be an interesting watch. I'm curious to see how they can pull this off. But you're right. What with the inevitable decline of the Patriots, and I still believe to this day that once Brady goes, Belichick hangs it up too.
Oh yeah.
So then you're looking at a Josh McDaniels.
If Garoppolo was still there, he would have probably stuck around. But
yeah, probably
maybe a year or two to see how good Garoppolo actually was.
Yeah, before transitioning over to the wunderkind Josh McDaniels. Yeah.
No, not a fan.
No.
Josh Rosen.
Yeah, that Josh Rosen to me is probably the most interesting of the rookie bunch that I saw. Not because he did anything spectacular, 6 for 13, 41 yards, but on the passes that he did hit, he looked like it wasn't the receivers making a play to bail him out, like what I saw a little bit with Josh Allen. Mm-hmm. This was, he made his passes and made the receivers look better rather than the other way around, which is what a good quarterback has to do.
What I noticed in Rosen, other than what you're saying, is I noticed a lot of his pocket presence. He was able to sit in that pocket. When the pocket collapsed, he was able to slide and move without, most quarterbacks don't have that wherewithal where they have to look back and see what's going on. He seemed to feel what was going on. And again, I didn't watch the game. I watched highlights of 5 of his snaps. Again, I'm taking a very small sample size of what I saw in the highlight and watched him specifically, the way he moved in the pocket and was able to throw. He threw 4 good balls that I saw him complete, 1 ball that was behind, still a completion. Could have led the receiver probably for another 15, 20 yards. That'll come with time.
Yeah.
But, yes, he threw 4.5 good balls, had the pocket presence that I saw was necessary because their offensive line isn't that strong. They can get better, but they have some work to do. So, like I said, to me, and I said this after the draft, he'll be the best of the 5, in my opinion. A lot of people think Darnold. I put Darnold a little higher after watching what he was able to do. Because for whatever reason, I was watching a freaking Jets preseason game.
Yeah, something in your life went wrong.
I worked the night shift, and a lot of times NFL Network will re-air preseason games.
Okay.
So
that makes a little
not
more
making
sense.
Any excuses for watching a Jets Week 1 preseason game.
That makes a little more sense, though.
But and the night
that
shift,
wasn't something like you popped a bunch of popcorn.
No, I didn't
got comfy under a blanket, and sat down on the couch. Yeah.
No, I didn't plan to watch it. It was just on. But the good thing about that kind of stuff is it gives me the chance to watch these guys and actually have a little bit more of a just. Because that's why I have a little bit less of a praise and accolade for Baker Mayfield from watching the 1 quarter of his football game, not live, but the replay, whereas everybody else just saw the ESPN SportsCenter highlights.
Yeah. And that's part of the problem, too. And again, we can talk about the 24-hour sports cycle, but, it's they have to fill time with either news stories. Well, if it's slow, they're not going to do that, or highlights. And when there are rookies on the field, you're going to show the rookies.
And I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, and neither do I. But I mean, that's going to. Then the network decides what you should and should not be seeing, rather than watching the entire game and getting the full view of what the player has done on the field.
And a lot of fans who believe they're hardcore, more casual, make a lot of assumptions based on what they saw instead of the whole body of work.
Yep.
And even to an extent, we're doing that as well, too, because I didn't watch all of Baker Mayfield, but what I saw, it was flashy, but it was more style than substance, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, we're all guilty of it, and you know,
I mean, it happens all the time.
Well, it just comes with the territory. Like, unless you're getting paid to watch these games, you don't have the time to watch every game and watch every snap and watch it intently and watch the way everything unfolds. We just don't have the time to do it.
Yeah, you do your best, and it's funny. It's like that way with VGK fans here in Vegas.
Oh yeah,
you know, oh my God, you know. I actually want to find, again, it will never happen, I want to find an alternate universe where VGK sucked their first year. And just see how the fan base is in that realm.
Okay.
Because everyone is just, I don't know what the right word to use is. They're bonkers. They just say things, you know, like you said with the Carlson, oh yeah, he's going to get 40 every year. I'm like, you know, this guy had 18 combined the rest of his career. And I understand he was in a different situation. Sometimes you need to break out to shine. But 40 goals in today's NHL, it's not that easy.
No.
Ovechkin is an all-timer. I mean, even Crosby doesn't score 40 goals, and he's probably considered the best player in the NHL.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just these statements that just come out of left field with no factual basis, or just like this one guy with Carlson's RFA arbitration. He's like, oh, thank God, I was so worried he was going to play for another team. I'm like, there was no chance of him playing for another team this year. Well, you don't know that he was a free agent. Yes, that's what restricted means, sir. Do some research before you say things.
Yeah, that's. I mean, we can shit on VGK fan. Actually,
I'm not shitting on. I'm just saying, like, you just have these conversations, and it's like, I've never been the kind of person that likes to just like, even when I'm looking, like, okay, I have a rebuttal. Wait, let me do some research real quick before I talk out of my ass.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just my style. I like that. It's like the old ESPN commercial. Did you ever see it where they're standing there, nobody's talking, but someone's talking sports, and then they pan on the guy's butt, and it says, watch ESPN so you're not just talking out of your butt.
No, I didn't see that.
It's a terrible commercial, but the gist of it's
the point is good, yeah.
If you don't watch ESPN, you'll be talking sports nonsense, is basically what they're trying to say with that.
Right.
So,
when the exact opposite is true.
Probably at this point. At this point, yeah, you're right.
No, and that's but I mean, some of the VGK, like some of the shit that I've heard from VGK, like I heard one guy say that the team that's playing in the NHL is essentially the Wranglers with 3 new players that just got promoted. Yeah, I just pure stupidity out of some people, and I don't want to say it's a problem, because I'm glad that the city I love has embraced the sport that I love.
Oh yeah, I don't want it to go away because.
Yeah, but it's just when you get excited and you get amped up and you think you're going to have a good hockey conversation, and somebody's like, I want to make Fleury the captain. It's like, oh, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, you can make Fleury the captain if you want.
No, you can't.
But it's
the league passed a rule against it like fucking 50 years ago. You can't.
I was talking about that guy. I was like, you can make Fleury the captain if you want, but it's not going to happen.
You're right.
Well, it's just like you want to make. Who did you want to make the captain?
Originally I said McNabb, but the more I think about it, the more the only one that makes sense to me is Riley Smith.
Yeah. I think Carlson could be the captain. Let's talk about that on a VGK related topic.
We'll get a Fortress Files episode going.
There you go. Yeah, for sure, absolutely. We have to get that ramped up back again.
Yeah.
Have to get Desiree back on that. I think she kind of forgot about it. So anyways, we'd like to thank our sponsors, 12 Ounce Radio, for putting us on every week, and I know they're doing big things over there, so we definitely are glad to be a part of it and happy for them. So once again, you can catch them at 12ouncesportsradio.com. Our show's on every Monday night, and also you can listen to our podcasts on vegassquares.com. Also read the articles that are on there. Again, like I said, I'll be putting a division champion prop bet for each division. All 8 divisions, I will give a detailed analysis about each team and where I think that their value ranks, as well as picking a division winner. So tail it or fade it. The choice is yours at that point.
Hey.
Also want to thank Chai Poker. for their sponsorship. I want to thank Thai Poker for their sponsorship of our podcast. Currently in Israel, doing some good work over there, doing some missionary work. We'll have to get them on to talk about that when they get back over. Stateside? I guess that's a good way to put it.
That's the right way, yeah.
Yeah, stateside. Doing it in Israel. That's pretty cool.
Wow.
Also want to thank VGK Pop Sockets for their continued sponsorship and support of our podcast. Also, if you're looking to be a sponsor of our podcast, you can definitely email us at vegassquares@gmail.com. We will, for Anthony, for Spike. Well, Anthony's not here, but he's here.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Good. I'm glad he contributed so much that he warranted a thanks
for the ghost of Token Tony and Spike. I am Aaron. We appreciate you listening. We'll see you on the next one.